So we have a new board member whom actually I know from our William Henry Harrison connection. I live in Harrison County. She is the director of Grassland, which is a fabulous historic structure. She has completely, haven't you all completely redone the
Yeah.
building with grants and monies you've raised, and just, she's been a ball of fire down there.
We have universal access now, which is amazing. First time in 220 years.
Lisa Ice Jones, she lives in Vincennes. I know her through our Harrison connection, and so she will be a wonderful addition to our board. When Jody sent me the memo that she had been appointed, I'm like, wait a minute, I think I know that lady. So I was thrilled. We welcome you to the board and are thrilled to have you. If you guys have not toured Grassland, put it on your list. It is wonderful, and she does a great job. They have a candlelight tour that is one of my top 5 things I've done. It's just special. So thank you for,
Christmas, first Friday in December.
okay,
Christmas candlelight.
Christmas candlelight. It's well worth it. It's very classy and fun and interprets the building fantastic. So welcome aboard.
Thank you.
We don't have any other introductions. There's our girl Cheryl. I had to do this. Thank you all for coming up here. I was telling them before the meeting started, I don't know if there's a straight route. Are you still working on that for me on how to get home? Like, how did I? Okay. Well, it was fun. I'm not saying I didn't like to wander Indiana, but I was like, after a few hours, I was like, is there a straighter route? So, okay, so the first item on the agenda is to review and approve the minutes. Thank you, Cheryl, for providing those with that for us. Oh, no, you do, Ethan, that's right. Or who does the
Or
minutes?
Todd or.
Or Todd.
Last time it was Erica, me, all of us combined. So
Okay, well, we appreciate whomever gives them to us. Have you all had a chance to look at these and approve them? We'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, now, let me ask this before we vote and mess this up. Are they supposed to say their name and I approve? So those of you joining us via that thing, say your name and I approve. Okay, is there any discussion about the minutes or? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Cam approves.
Tom Chevlock, aye.
Cam Clark, aye.
All opposed, same sign. We'll approve the minutes as written. Thank you guys again. The second item is updates.
Yes, wanted to share a couple of the events and things that have been happening, and kind of looking ahead, not triple too far into the new business, but it'll kind of run together. We did have Run for the Trees, which is the virtual 5K. It started up in Michigan, and I think there's now 13, possibly 18 states working on that project. We had more than 1,600 registrants in Indiana. So between the registrations and the outright donations that came in for that program, we will be getting close to $35,000 to support work in forests and in state parks. And the project that was done last year, I think Ethan's done a story on it, was they were doing tree of head removal in Florence Creek to kind of clean up one of the nature preserve areas. We also did a tree planting at Prophetstown on Earth Day with Houston Solar. They planted about 3,000 trees. They didn't get them all done. So they came in, DNR went back in and finished with a mechanized planter, but they did have a smaller group. But they still had a great time. They broke for lunch, and then the interpreter comes out and does a small program with them. So it's kind of a nice day for them to be out. And then the Northeast Indiana fundraiser was just back in May on the 14th, but I'm going to let Todd take over and share the details on that.
Yeah, so actually Missy was talking about this a few minutes ago before we started. So we gathered all of our partners in Northeast Indiana. We did that in Fort Wayne at the home of Tom Kelly back on May 14th. Just a really cool celebration of the work that's being done up there and everybody that's contributing. So it was a really good evening. There were about 80 people there. We heard from Tom spoke, Director Morrison from the DNR spoke, and then we heard from Governor Braun as well. We're waiting on a few pledges to come in yet, but we should be over $215,000 raised this year through that event when those come in. So big thanks to, it's a total team effort. Jody, Cheryl, Ethan, all the work Cheryl does to receive the gifts that come in ahead of time and get acknowledgement letters out, and Ethan with all the promotional materials and the programs and everything. It's a big team effort. Missy and Bob were there. Grateful that you could be there. Mark and other DNR staff were there. So it was just a really good, encouraging event. Really excited how things are going up there.
As was your wife, and that's always
He
a
was, yes,
strengthening factor to have a spouse
yes.
helping with that. I love
Good.
that. So I look forward to y'all coming south to Portland and
Yes.
great, yeah.
Yeah, I think too, I think the biggest thing is a couple of events ago, we transitioned from that big banquet where there was 250 to 300 people. They were $1,000 tables, 8 to 10 people. We're raising the exact same amount by having an event in someone's house with about 60 to 80 people that are showing up. Because we took away all the extra seat fillers and it was really focused on donors that were there. And it's been fantastic. We don't have the overhead of $30,000 to $40,000 in catering and food. There's no live auction. There's no silent auction. So it's really kind of changed. What we're doing just as well, if not better. And I think the amount raised this year is probably one of the top amounts, if not the top amount we've ever raised. So that was a good event. So good job, Todd. Other things that are coming up here pretty soon. I have 2 property closings with Mark and his team with InSwamp on Thursday down in Newburgh, Indiana, for the InSwamp program. And then we have closings for that Jackson, Washington parcel that they're using a revolving fund for. That's going to be on June 22nd down in Seymour. So by the end of this month, we'll have that parcel acquired, and then we'll start working to transfer that over to DNR. And I think at some point, there's probably going to be a dedication maybe for that within the public access site that's going to be going in there. So when we have details for that, we will share in that month. Also, Eric has been out after the last board meeting. She went on parent leave on March 23rd. So she'll be coming back on June 15th, I think. I think June 15th is her next day back, which is what, next Monday? Yeah, so we'll have her back Monday. So we've been without her for about 12 weeks. So it'll be nice to have an extra pair of hands back in the office again. As in the last meeting, we talked about, as far as the finance updates go, we talked about the audit and trying to get that wrapped up. Hit a challenge with that on a net asset rollover and functional expense. And I was trying to do that based on our book work. And since we're doing a modified cash accounting audit report, it's blending accrual and cash together. So it's been a little bit tricky trying to navigate the auditor's trial balance sheets because they make journal entry adjustments and trying to get everything to match and be coordinated has been a little bit of a challenge. And I think we've learned some things too by doing that, where they made some entries that shouldn't have necessarily been classified the way they were. So we've got those changed. I do have a functional expense report that's done now. So just still waiting on finding out if we're going to look at, because it looks like they're trying to put an investment transfer where we roll it over from the dividends and interest from the investment account to the bank account. So it's an internal transfer, which is more of a reclassification of assets, but it looks like they want us to report it as a functional expense. So we have to make sure that that part's cleaned up as well. My hope is that once that's done, they'll be able to get working on a draft. I had asked if we could get a draft of some of the financials for this meeting, but CBIZ has an internal process to do a review before they publish those. So my hope is that would be out pretty soon. The budget is normally something that we would do in this meeting for June. I'm behind on reconciliations because of trying to figure out some of this audit work. And the other component of that is we actually will need to have, for a budget approval, we'll have to have everybody on the board in person for that meeting, for that to take place because of the public policy meetings that are out there. And I tried to find that before the meeting, but wasn't able to locate it. So I'll have to, I can share that with you guys before, but for the September meetings, we definitely want to make sure that we're all there in person. The other thing that we talked about last time was outsourcing some of the finances or some of the financial components. And that led to a bigger discussion and hopefully will fall into some of the strategic planning as well. In order for us to do some of this outsourcing, a company or a firm outside of the state would have to have access to the backbone of the state server because of how we do QuickBooks, because QuickBooks is loaded on its desktop version. I don't think we have the authority, and I'm not sure how easy it is for an outside entity to get access into the state server, which I don't think is possible. So we really need it to be a cloud-based program for that to work. Trying to figure out, they said we could probably use it, but I want a definitive email or something in print that says we can actually use the QuickBooks Cloud because of all the different requirements and the security requirements that need to be in place for those to work, and to be approved to work. So that's gonna be a big part of that step as well. We're gonna have to move to something regardless, because my understanding is in the next year or two, that QuickBooks Desktop is gonna completely go away. So we're gonna have to find another accounting solution. With that accounting solution comes, how are we migrating all the data? How are we training the staff? So that's a big task for us to take on, making sure that we maintain the data integrity. It's not something that happens super quick. So we'll be glad we're doing the audit and have all of that piece put together, but we're gonna have to transfer that accounting to something very soon. So you guys have any questions over that or see any updates?
I don't have a question, but I do have a moment of discussion here. I talked to Jody quite a bit, and more than 10 times, when I say, oh, he's doing audit stuff. Have we hired an accountant or do we have an executive director? I'm not sure that we're being fair to Jody, adding this audit stress to Jody. And I think it's about to wear him out. He won't say that, but those of us that know Jody rather well know that it's a lot. We've had an audit on top of an audit, on top of another audit. And some of them have overlapped, right? That you're able to use the same information, but that's stressful and takes a lot of his energy just doing numbers. And I think that those of you that are more on top of these things than I am, we need to brainstorm how to relieve some of that path to Jody. Or is that the path we want for Jody? I don't think that's the best use of his skills. I think he's good at whatever he does. But I think when Jody gets overwhelmed with that stuff, and he's not complaining, I'm just voicing this, then I think that starts taking away from being able to get out to do what we hired him for. So if I'm stepping out of line here, just say Missy, that's
I
enough.
think it's just,
But I think we need to know. I mean, you guys don't know. I mean, and I think the board needs to be aware of just how consuming these audits have been, right?
well, it's not, I mean, it's the audit is one piece of it. And that comes and goes, but the next step we'll have is we're doing fiscal year and then we're gonna step into the ACFR reporting, which will have to go back. And now because we've done an audit and we're reporting financials one way, the ACFR is kind of a different way. So we have to figure out how we're gonna explain some of this because some of that's gonna look a little bit different. But on top of that, and a new business item that was added to the agenda is it's also like all the bank reconciliations that we have. We have 3 bank accounts, 2 investment accounts, the money market account, and we're getting ready to look at adding 2 more accounts for a program. So even just that amount of work and some of the accounting, it gets to be a lot, and it takes a lot away from our ability to really plan and do the things that we want to from the fundraising side because it's more task work. And as I went through the audit, on the functional expense, there's a breakdown of what is general and administrative versus what is fundraising. And, I've got Todd and Erica, their salary went out there at 80-20, they're 80% fundraising, 20% admin. I've got him on a 50-50 split. Cheryl's on general office and admin. For my time, when I went back and looked at it, I'm like 90% general and admin and 10% fundraising. And I have to figure out how do I get that percentage, 10% on fundraising a lot higher. And I don't know, when we get into the strategic planning, I think that can be a big part of that discussion where do we need to modify the current staff structure? Do we just do the outsourcing? What is the best possible path forward for the organization to be successful? And not just me, but also, protecting and preserving the roles that we have with Todd and then Erica and Cheryl. So I think it's a lot bigger discussion, and I think it fits very well into that strategic planning part of the discussion.
I certainly don't think we can solve it today. I just wanted everybody to know where we are with this situation.
I have a question.
Okay,
So Jody, if the audit wrapped up tomorrow, with everything else that you mentioned, what would your percentages go to, from 90-10 to 50-50, or would it still be closer to the 90-10, or would it be below 50-50?
I go to 80-20
Really?
because it's
Okay.
a lot of, there's a lot of accounting now, with the in-swamp programs and those components. Keeping those reconciled on a monthly basis, looking at the investments, we've got CDs out there. I mean, that just takes time. And, the last thing I want to do is make grave mistakes on numbers. Like, be in a hurry to do that because accuracy on those pieces is probably the most important thing that we have. But with accuracy also comes timing, because I know I'm behind on the in-swamp program by about a month, and having that done for them helps them make decisions, helps them do what they need to do. And then when we look at our next new business, where we have to open 2 new accounts, we're going to be running through a lot of admin work, because I'm not exactly sure what it's going to look like, but and I can skip and get into that later, but with the 2 new accounts, we're not sure yet whether we can leave this isolated component in the in-swamp or IOFP books from an accounting standpoint, or if it actually has to have its own new separate set of books just for that. From the sounds of it, it sounds like it may need to be an entirely new set of books, so that would then be 4 sets of books we're going through. So I don't think any of us anticipated it, and I think Mark can share a little bit too with the in-swamp program and how it's grown and how it's evolved over time. We're being very responsive to what DNR needs us to do as in that fiscal role. So we're doing what we need to. It just seems to be growing as the program evolves and gains some steam and is actually working like it's supposed to.
I just think, I had an employee whose mother was tragically killed in a motorcycle wreck, so she left like that. And I felt like I had been behind for the past year. And that's not a real healthy place to be, to always feel that you're behind. And I think you're in that position right now, always behind, either to Mark or, and I feel like as a board, we need to remedy that in some way.
Missy, I agree with you, and I've had a lot of conversation with Jody, and I've seen this train wreck in slow motion. And I don't mean to describe it as a train wreck, but Jody's
What you mean? Yeah.
workload is out of balance. And at some point, we do need to figure out how to bring in some relief, and what that relief is going to look like, because a lot of what Jody does is pretty complicated. And I'm not sure if Jody left like your gal did tomorrow, who would step in and know what to do. So the sooner we get somebody in here as, just sort of a backup with the knowledge of these accounting nuances, the better off we're going to be. Because if God forbid we lose Jody, I don't know if there's anybody who has the knowledge to do what he's currently doing.
Well, I'm not leaving tomorrow, so don't worry about it.
Well, I don't know, but my point is, from a
I like the
duplicity
stress on you.
standpoint, we do need to have more than one person who knows all the different accounting aspects of what the foundation does.
And
And I
to do some of that task work, as you refer to it. Jody needs to be out in a canoe with a potential donor that's interested in what we do, working that rather than sitting there doing task work. That's a good word for it.
It's a lot.
I hate when I have to do task work for what I do. It's like, Jace, somebody else should be doing this and I could be doing. It is a waste of your talents, in my opinion. I know it's stuff that has to be done, and I'm not negating that, but I'm just saying your talents could be used in another, 90-10, that's absolutely ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But we know it's something that has to be done. But I think we have to, on some level, get somebody to help. Yes. Oh, I thought you said something. I know, Rick, you had some comment. I'm sorry.
Similar to Cam's question, I'm trying to get better understanding. I assume when we talk audit, it's a pop-up. It's painful, it eventually goes away. This sounds like this is a chronic, long-term.
Has been.
Or do you see light at the end of the tunnel? Is there a point where a month out goes 80-20, and 2 months out it goes 70-30, or do you see this?
I mean, with the way things are shaping up now, I see it being more of a perpetual issue because of the cyclical nature of what we're doing. Because we'll go in from this audit and then we'll do the ACFR reporting that goes back. I mean, there's just different requirements on that financial piece. And then we have to determine moving forward, are we continuing to do an audit like we did this time annually? Are we going to do it biannually? What is needed, what is necessary? And how comfortable are we, then going back and looking at the requirements out of the executive order that came out that pushed us into this situation, and figure out from a timeline perspective, a future audit with the same firm should not take as long because we'll have that. Really, this is the first time we've ever done this in 34 years of the foundation history.
Part of the point, so that's, is that this is what should be victims of success.
Right. But at the same time, with the different accounts, all the accounting structures, and just from an operational standpoint, there's a lot of that task work that really needs to be done that does prevent me from being out and about.
That will stay with us,
It's going to stay.
even if we're not having audit on top of audit, audit on top of audit.
I was saving this for new business under strategic planning. Jody, you said as a reminder, the strategic plan, and that was great. And in this conversation, I think one of the other things we need to do if we're going to revisit our strategic planning is, and all good strategic plans have this, we need to look at and remind ourselves as a board, your role, position description, ideal time spent versus what you're doing now. And Todd, Ethan, Erica, Cheryl's position description,
Absolutely.
what ideal percentages of tasks you want them to be doing actual. And then what are those items that are keeping us from getting that percentage to the ideal?
Right.
What are those task assignments? What are those roles and responsibilities? And is that a partial FTE? Is that an outsourcing? Is that a combination of all those? So the board can all be on the same page. Here's the assets and resources we have in people now. Here's how they're being used or misused. And what do we need to do to bring that back in alignment to match our mission and our strategic plan?
I think that's a great.
Very.
Leave that part till we get to the strategic plan and add that to that computer.
Yes, that's great. And maybe I put that in there where it shouldn't have been. I didn't
Sorry.
expect it to be such a long discussion. But I told you I had that meeting with the governor yesterday, and I told him, I said, we have the strongest, most skilled board that could have come together. Everybody loves what we do. So I knew that if the board was aware of this situation, you guys probably didn't know, did you? Were you all aware? I mean, maybe a little bit. I said, I'm sure in my mind that we can remedy this. We just need to be aware and brainstorm. So thank you guys for that. We can leave that now, but everybody think about it. It's not going to go away.
We can get back into that discussion in 2 more points.
Okay, go.
All right, so the first item of new business is the addition. I want to get that taken care of. I don't think it's going to take us a tremendous amount of time. And Mark can step in here. I think he can give a little bit higher level view of what's happening with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The need for this change, but Brad had Baldwin, the director of the Swamp program, emailed me on Friday, or actually he called me Friday and then followed up with an email that there is something to do with the way the credit structure is working, with the isolated wetlands being part of the Swamp program, that the Corps wants the isolated wetland separated from the Swamp program because it's not part of that jurisdictional waterway with the wetlands and the streams. And because I think they're a state-driven credit possibly, and it kind of impacts them on a federal level with their permits. So peeling that out, I don't know what that really looks like on the Swamp side, but from our perspective, we need to address how the finances look and how that works to accommodate what they have to do on the DNR side. And I don't know what that looks like for the picture yet, but it does sound like absolutely different bank accounts are required. I just don't know from our end on the back end if it does require a new set of books to match that, or if we can put that within another book structure that already exists. So Mark, I don't know if you want to share kind of where the request from the board.
Sure. Mark Becker, Director of Division of Land Acquisition. We manage the Indiana Stream and Wetland Mitigation Program. And when that program was established in 2018, there's an program instrument that's an agreement between the Army Corps of Engineers, IDEM and DNR that is sort of the master agreement of how that program would work. And that agreement allowed for DNR to sell isolated wetland impact or sell credits for isolated wetland impacts. And those would be permits that are issued by IDEM for damages to wetlands that are not regulated by the Army Corps, that are only regulated under IDEM's isolated wetland law. So one of the things that has happened since 2018 that has had a big impact on this is that the federal government's definition of what a jurisdictional wetland overseen by the Army Corps has shrunk dramatically because of a Supreme Court case and because of some changes in administration. And so that has had the effect of making a lot of wetlands in Indiana that previously would have been regulated by the feds are now overseen by IDEM. And so we have sold a much higher percentage of isolated credits through that program than was anticipated in 2018. And so that has led to us selling in a couple of our service areas, selling through the entire advance allotment of credits before we were able to deliver projects to start recycling those credits. And so last week, we got a letter from the Army Corps. There's been some changes in how the Army Corps is overseeing this program. Since 2018, we've been overseen by somebody out of the Indianapolis field office. That changed last year and oversight was moved to Louisville, the Louisville district. And that, quite candidly, that change has been pretty dramatic and difficult for us to navigate. There've been a whole lot of new requirements that have been thrown at the program by the Louisville district. Their review timelines for our projects have ground almost to a halt. We have some of our projects where we've been waiting 10 or 11 months for comments from the Corps. And on top of that, we've been given a whole lot of bureaucratic tasks that they've asked for us to complete. So we submitted our annual report for calendar year 2025 at the end of February. We just finally got their review of that annual report last week. And we were surprised to learn in that letter that they are requiring us effective immediately to separate out those isolated credits from the program. So even though our instrument specifically allows for it, they're requiring us to stop the sale of those credits and to basically redo the instrument. So we're not really sure what that looks like. There was not a whole lot of communication there's really no communication by the Corps with DNR prior to that letter. And so I don't believe they have a grasp of the complication of those requirements on our side between DNR, IDEM, and the foundation. But it doesn't sound like that will be an optional discussion based on how that letter reads. So, I think we're still trying to wrap our minds around exactly how we're going to accomplish all of that. One aspect of that, I think, will be that we're going to be required to set up a complete separate accounting of the sales of isolated credits. And so that gets back to what Jody was talking about, setting up a new bank account for that. We're also likely going to need to enter into a MOU with IDEM in order to sell those credits going forward and set up like a parallel program IDEM. So we met with them yesterday afternoon. They were also caught blindsided by this letter from the Corps. So I probably have more questions than I have answers about all of that at this point. But we'll definitely keep the foundation updated and Jody included in those discussions. But I think our intention is to set up a program with IDEM that would allow us to continue selling isolated credits. Those are super important for development across the state. If those credits aren't available, it pushes developers into permitting responsible mitigation, which is very expensive, time consuming, and often has a lower success rate than pooled mitigation is. So
Thank you, Mark.
that's where we're at.
There's a lot of information there, and I think for the purpose of the foundation, it's good to have some of that background, and some of the why and how we're doing that, but for us to be ready for this, it sounds like this is moving fairly quick, and what we need to do is we need to be ready to respond to the need that the DNR has with this, and knowing what we're looking at, having that separated out, the way the In Swamp and ILRP programs are structured, we would want to keep that same structure if we're moving this isolated piece away, because the amount of money that may be involved with it. So we would need 2 bank accounts to open. One serves as a deposit only account, which is listed on the invoice. The only way money comes in is inward. There's no outward flow of money whatsoever unless we transfer it internally from the deposit only account over to the operating account. And that protects the operating account. Nobody has the account numbers. Everything's done electronically for that. It's been working very well since we opened the accounts for Swamp and ILFP to do that. So the request is that the board would authorize opening 2 accounts to service the isolating wetland program as needed in the next couple months.
With all of the. Sounds like there's a lot of unknowns still on how this is going to work, but, before. I guess pulling the trigger on this is something that we are confident is absolutely can be required, like a separate account and what just having this conversation and all the admin work that Jody's doing, putting something on it's free
The
to.
account opening the accounts isn't the hard part. It's setting up the whole new support structure and then aligning, because my understanding is that there's going to be some credits that have already been sold that are going to be transferred into this separation, and
Yeah.
filtering through that's going to be the one part. The accounts won't be hard. The bank, I already talked to the bank about the potential that this would need to be set up. Let them know we were having a board meeting today and said when it's approved to move forward, when I get the nod from GNR that we need to get going, and we'll have the ability just to open accounts anyway.
The actual tracking of the sales is done by In-Swamp staff. There's a lot of back and forth between Jody and Cheryl and some members of my staff on, how that accounting works, but we keep track of the ledger, which logs each individual sale. And when we withdraw money, we provide a memo or an email to Jody's staff as to what account needs to come out of, et cetera. But
Yeah, that was my other question is with this, there's likely developments that are gonna have. Isolated wetlands as well as, jurisdictional waters and getting it separated out, how much goes to what, but your staff does all of that and it just. It funnels the information.
yeah, so the permit that would be issued either by IDEM or by the Corps breaks down how many of what type of credit they're required to buy in order to satisfy that permit. So, the permit kind of tells us how we need to sell the credits. And we would now need to track that in 2 separate ledgers rather than one unified ledger.
So our mitigation site is gonna be separated out as well, then.
That's one of our big questions, is because we had combined those funds since 2018, all of our project budgets for the existing pipeline of projects is built on delivering both on one unified
Right.
site. So it may be that we can do a mitigation, let's say we have a 100-acre property that we're gonna do mitigation on. We may be able to delineate which credits are going where and prepare a separate legal description for those. It will create more complication in project delivery.
Right.
But if we can do that on one site and have one construction project and one contract, we'll have some cost savings in that. we may need to account for the credits separately. But there's all kinds of questions like that as
Yeah.
the
No, I
As you work
understand.
through it.
I'm just, as I'm trying to think through it, thinking probably a lot of the same things that you are and how it's gonna affect what we're doing. Here, and I know we're just the money people, but it's getting complicated real fast.
Well, the one thing we do every year with their ledger, and the way our books are, everything was set up to kind of coexist, right? Whatever's on ours is on their ledger. They have a lot more detail than what we need. But every year when Mark referenced the annual report they send to the core, every year, usually the first week of January, I run reports for ILFP and INSWAM. And then Brad and his team, they go back through and look at our detail versus what they have in their ledger to make sure everything matches. We do that every year. So that way, I mean, we didn't really have, I don't think any modifications. There might have been something that was missing or something, but everything is pretty spot on. So I think we have good checks and balances in it, which is why if they're separating out the ledger, we also have to separate
Sure.
something out to make sure we're able to demonstrate that those programs are in alignment from a financial perspective.
So then as a board, do we need to vote on the opening of a
We
new
need to
account?
have to open, yeah, to vote to open new accounts, yes, that we be consistent with where we've done in the past.
Not that this matters, but what sparked the move to Louisville from Indianapolis? Did they close an office or something?
No, the individual that was assigned to us actually had a health issue, and so I think, I don't know the inner workings of the core, but that was the sequence of events, whether that's why that happened. But he got reassigned. It's not been beneficial to us. We can't control it. If I could, we would move it back to the Indianapolis field office.
Better shut down stuff. Just even when it comes to big charges and whatever.
Any motion?
Yes.
Make a motion, we authorize Jody, to authorize the two accounts he needs to accommodate the program change.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, any further discussion about any of this? All in favor, say aye.
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 Cam, you're muted.
Oops, sorry. I, Tom Chevlot.
Cam Clark, aye.
Matt.
Kylie, aye.
I'm Matt.
Hello.
Pass, all opposed, same sign? We'll pass that. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Mark. Rick.
Madam Chair, I know you run an efficient meeting, so the commission, the back that minute. Brad suggested, this conversation magnifies the previous.
Absolutely.
Brad had suggested that we come to the summary and duties, but I would like to add to them this like time frame. The ads help. Once the budget cycle is done, I don't want to get too far in our next meeting, not until September. So we need to be aware of the budget cycles and what I take to get you the help that we.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I was just thinking, since we don't meet again until September, yes, Jody, we know what a mess you're in, but we need to remedy it before we say, okay, let's revert back, let's talk about that again. So timing is important here.
No, I agree. And I'm hopeful that in the next, I would say, well, every time I plan something, but it is my hope is that by the end of June or mid-July, I would be caught up with the reconciliations and be able to start working on that budget and we can start having some conversations. Because I think the other things that make an impact, especially from the budget perspective, is the fact that we need to figure out, are we doing an audit annually? Are we doing that biannually? What does that look like? Because this audit that we did came with a great expense of $30,000. And I know INSWAM and ILP paid for a portion of that with the good work that was done there. But we're also, we're $15,000+ in on that. So if we're doing that annually, what does that cost look like? I don't think audits get cheaper, but being in the future, the next one might be a little bit cheaper because it's not the first one, but I don't think it's going to be that much cheaper. So that's an additional expense. If we do that annually, it's about $30,000 that we're going to be spending. So those are the types of things that can be some stuff. No, I absolutely agree. We need to take all of that out. We need to figure out financially what we can do and be able to move forward. So I think there's different paths and different options that we can look at. But I do think that's a great conversation for that strategic planning section.
When is your first budget proposal due? Will it be-
We don't have to send a budget proposal, we don't send budgets to. Because we don't have state funds, we don't have any appropriation. Requirements in the budget.
Well, not that any of us have an extra time that we're looking for something to do. None of us are looking for something to do. But is this something we need to put a committee together or have a special meeting or how are our rights to do that? Oh, there's Cam. Okay, Cam.
You guys want?
I was just gonna suggest that maybe we get a little subcommittee from the board to kind of get together and brainstorm and without taking up too much of Jody's time, maybe whoever sits on this committee can come up with some thoughts and ideas and then offer those up for Jody's consideration and maybe be prepared with a solution at our next board meeting rather than continuing to discuss it at board meetings.
Great idea. We're going to say something.
I was gonna say, can we jump to that farm lease and get back in that strategic planning discussion, because we can wrap the meeting with that.
It's logical that this be an executive committee. Or you want something to have on.
I don't know. I think it makes sense to me that anybody that has an interest or skill to this could jump on board with this committee. What do you all think? I don't know.
I agree. I think anybody that wants to be on it should be on it.
Maybe the executive committee plus anyone else that brings skills to the table.
When I was talking to Jody on the phone, my son is a partner with Kemper CPA Group and he has a background in audits. And he's done a lot with streamlining and fine tuning what we do at Grassland. We do like what we call functional expense allocation or analysis where we take salary and divide it up over categories. I don't know if you do that, but that's really helpful to see that through the course of the year, if that plays out the way that you thought it was going to, or what imbalance there might be, where you might need to focus attention more. Anyway, I told Jody, you should have a conversation with my son because he's really practical minded. He's really a direct communicator. He's not like the typical stereotypical accountant that you would think. And he said that's totally fine. He said you can call him up and you can pick his brain and he'll be happy to talk to you.
That would be great. Maybe the subcommittee could pick his brain.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
that sounds good. Okay, so before we end the meeting, we're gonna circle around and decide who's gonna be on the subcommittee. So be thinking if you have just an inch extra time and energy, you can help us with this. Because I feel this is really an important issue. I mean, a serious issue that we need to address sooner than later. Okay, go ahead, Jody.
I want to jump into the farming leases, and that is really a discussion. I mean, we're gonna have to do something to address this, working with Mark and his team and properties that we're acquiring, whether it's through the Swamp and ILFP program or something that we're acquiring that will eventually transfer over to the DNR. A lot of these properties are winding up as some agricultural ground on them. And farm leases are coming up, and I know that we did one with a farm and that we're going to close in with this week. That we became an option or an assignment, I think, right? If the property sells, we pick up the lease that already exists. But with other properties, there's gonna be situations where we're gonna wanna come up with a lease. And what's driving this is the lease that we're being assigned to has language that it's not really a cash rent option. So I don't know if there's anybody that has experience with farm leases that you wanna share or provide input, or if you have any objections to this. Because I think when we do a farm lease, I think we also need to address where those funds are directed. Those can they can go a lot of places, but I think since we're dealing with land acquisition, I don't know. I think we had a small conversation about this, and, if the funds are coming to the foundation, we think that could be a great new funding source for the revolving fund for future land acquisition opportunities. That way we can continue to grow that fund as well. And we also want to stick with the cash grant option per acre, determine what the amounts are based on the location and geography, where they're at in the state. Because I think it varies on the farm ground around the state. Because we want to avoid getting into crop sharing and other language and other things that happen. It's just, this is the way it works. This is the flat rate. If you're farming, here it is. Because I do think there are cases that, the family selling it may have been farming it Or if they want to farm it again, we can always incorporate that in equation or whatever we do, but I think it's time that we have more of a standardized lease. We have to work with DNR's legal on that because if this is property that's going to be transferred over to DNR, we'll have to address and make sure that the lease that we put together doesn't impact that transfer over to the DNR when it's time to turn it over to the state.
To that point, Jody, why would DNR not provide us a boilerplate lease that we want to use?
They may wind up doing that. I don't know.
We can, the boilerplate ag lease that the state uses is meant to go to bid through the state process. And so it's a little bit more cumbersome than what I think we would have to be required to do for the foundation. But I think we could probably do something a little bit simpler with the foundation than what the state would require.
But we can probably take some of the language and get homeless and build
And send it back to DNR and say, we need a simpler mousetrap. You know, they've got full-time, no planning, but I know DNR's got attorneys over there that have some time.
and give us.
How are the revenues from these leases treated? Are they encumbered, are there restrictions?
I mean, I think if we're doing a lease on these, I think it would really kind of be the board's direction on how these funds would be applied. So when we get to the point, I think it would be important once we have a lease, that the board probably go ahead and approve that lease and everything that comes with it, including where those funds are directed as they come in. But my recommendation would be the revolving land fund, unless there's some other reason.
Can we use them in admin, like perhaps the higher?
We can do whatever we can, I think we could, but here's the thing, though, I think with what we're looking at with these farm leases is we're looking at a potential unknown on what we're gonna have, when we're gonna have it in the timeline, and it's not gonna be necessarily a sustainable source of income. So if it's kind of a hit and miss, I think that's why I would put it in the land fund, because that doesn't require, it's just a bump anytime we get those funds.
It's simple.
Thirty, can I make a suggestion on that? I think I would suggest avoiding a situation where each individual lease would need to be approved by the foundation, because you have 4 meetings a year. So if you could see kind of a broad authorization.
That's what I was hoping for, is,
Okay.
yeah, like, we can authorize it, with parameters that, something moves off course. But I think if we have documented, the board approves, the standardized template, if there are any variations, we can just come back, but we're ready to go, and if somebody doesn't like the lease, then you're not gonna run it to them, I guess. I don't, it just helps us say. no.
Here's the rates that are approved by the board. Here's the use or dedication of it by the board, and then so that's your standard thing.
A suggestion on the rates is that Purdue publishes annually, kind of a rent, cash rent survey of the state by region, and then above quality ground, average ground, and poor quality ground. And nobody at DNR is going to be an expert on every local market, so that's probably what I would look to recommend a cash rent rate, is that Purdue. And that just gives you kind of a third party expertise to point to.
Because I think the USDA comes out with one as well, right? Department of Agriculture having as well.
Finley.
So you can even take 2 and, yeah, so there's a process. we can do for that, too.
Are those published annually, you said, so
I think Purdue's is published annually, and it's probably a look back for the prior year.
yeah, so I think we need to look at, if we are determining like the rate structure, are we indexing it to something like that does change annually, or is it like a annual vote from the board that sets it for the year?
USDA annually. For agriculture, rates are broken down by national averages, state averages, and county level estimates, typically released in August of every year.
That'll be perfect for September if we get it done.
That's exactly why we love you, Brad. I know, but you went to the trouble to look that up. Okay, so,
I don't necessarily think we need to vote on it. I just wanted to see if there were any objections or any guidelines that you would like to see attached to this, as we put a first effort together. And hopefully bring something back to the September board meeting.
okay, let's move on. Being conscious of time, it's about 10:21. We have a little time, and I'm not gonna melt if we go a little over an hour, but we've covered a lot of stuff that really needs our attention this time. But let's be conscious of near the hour point.
We do, and we do have some time to run over because the Harrison Trust meeting was moved to noon because of the whole.
So anyway, we do have time, but that's not the point of it.
No.
We all are busy people and we need to be conscious of this.
So before we jump into that strategic planning, I do want to do the September board meeting discussion, because we want to look at a date and then the location. We have it scheduled as regular, it's the second Tuesday, which would be September 8th. And looking at the calendar, Tuesday, September 8th is the day after Labor Day. And I don't know if we wanted to look at moving potentially the meeting, obviously we would have to move it alongside with the Harrison Trust. If we wanted to look at doing that September 15th, instead of the 8th, since it's hugging that holiday so closely and we don't know, if everybody has travel plans coming back in. But I wanted to put that option on the table to see if we wanted to do the 8th or the 15th.
I'm okay with the 8th as already there.
Be chasing trucks and things that we can.
So I,
What,
Are you asking?
Okay.
Let's merge those
You guys
trips
need
together.
to like work out your fishing trips and synchronize them. This is crazy. I'm joking.
There'll be a call-in option as well.
There will be, but if we're doing the budget, it's one of those that
Oh,
we
yeah,
have to have everybody.
Okay, so
Which
let's,
everybody are quorum.
I will not be there on the 8th. So if we could
okay,
move it
so
to,
let's,
great.
well, let's think if there's another day other than the 8th or the 15th. We don't have to do one of those 2
It
days.
doesn't have to be one of those two, that was just giving. you
What's
consistent
good for-
Tuesday.
Does it have to be a Tuesday?
No,
No, it doesn't have to be a Tuesday, but we do have to coordinate it with the Harrison Trust.
The
we
15th?
don't have to coordinate it that one time. It just is an extra trip for me and I'm fine to make an extra trip. For the sake of, I mean, I love it and I love you guys for doing that, but it doesn't have to be that way. If we can get everybody here on a time,
can we just send out an email?
Yeah.
Do a Google poll or whatever, Google poll. Because I, Cam can on the 8th, maybe he can on the 9th or the 10th or.
yes,
My
but
trip's not locked in, so if we just do it. I know, we're available.
Is it, Matt?
I'm traveling. I'm traveling that week, actually for about 10 days. So that week is out for me for what it's worth.
is it better to do earlier, like in August or sometime, or is that too soon?
I don't know if we want to do earlier, just, I mean, yeah, with the budget and everything,
Well, I think that's a good idea, do the doodle poll,
yeah.
because then at the same time, we're looking at, we were talking about doing the next meeting, the June and September meetings out, away from Fort Harrison. And we were looking, I think, at one or two possibilities of either the, Forest Training Center or Forest Education Center at Morgan Monroe, which is just south of Minneapolis, ways, or doing it at Orange Creek. So those were the two locations we were considering. However, if we're not gonna do it the same day, we're not gonna do it at the same time, if it's better if everybody's in person, it's easier for us to do it in Indianapolis for the purpose of everybody being there. We can do that at Fort Harrison as well.
Might be even better to do it at the government center.
Right.
Are you thinking of changing from the 8th as well due to the Labor Day weekend or no?
Well, I was gonna wait to see what you all decided and then
See if that works.
see if that works for my commission. If you're gonna decouple it, so then I guess they can.
Well, let's not scrap the whole coupling idea, because it's great, but I'm just saying, when things like this come up, I'm fine with decoupling.
If I ask that commission, I'll get a whole bunch of answers to. I would rather just tell them.
Right?
Hey, Jody,
Okay, so who's gonna,
Yes,
hey, Jody,
yes.
okay, I couldn't tell if you heard me. Is there a requirement that every board member has to be at this September meeting?
It's not the September meeting, it's when there's a budget approved.
That's what I
That's
meant, with the budget
There's
approval.
a policy handbook for meetings on that, and it's in there. I can actually ask to see if that's something that we can work around, because I know it's challenging with the board makeup and everybody's involvement with their daily lives. It's a struggle sometimes. So we'll see if we can maybe have an exception to that, but that's based on what the public policy handbook states.
do most of the board respond to your emails and stuff?
Usually.
Okay, just you guys said that, I'll come whenever, 2 days, 1 day, whatever.
We'll handle that for a doodle poll. So now we can get back there in the strategic plan.
Okay,
Let's wrap it.
okay, all righty.
And it is 10:26. So I think you're talking about possibly having a committee.
We're talking about a subcommittee to address this situation that we're trying to alleviate for you.
Well, I think it's.
For the foundation, I mean, not just for you, but you are getting the brunt of it.
But as a part of the strategic planning process.
Correct.
So, I mean, the ad hoc committee that Rose put together is kind of like the strategic planning subcommittee.
And specifically utilization of staff, roles, responsibilities, and what holes need to be filled. And while Cam said, you know, we as board members will help that, Jody, I'd be keenly interested in your recommendations, especially on how to line the budget.
Right. So if, who is willing, or are we doing that right now?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to spend some time on that.
Wonderful. Okay, we have Brad. Does anybody else want to volunteer?
I'll do it.
I volunteer.
Yeah, same here.
Can, good. Karen, Tom,
Okay,
did you want me to kick you? I was trying to kick you under the table, but I couldn't reach you. Okay, all right, and I'll do that as well. Okay, we can get together and decide where, when, what tools we need to come up with a good idea. Anybody else?
No, but I think that the sooner we get everybody, a
Yeah.
reminder, everybody's position
Agreed.
description, roles, responsibilities, what's the time allocation currently versus where you want to get, Jody, for your staff.
Can you do that for us, Jody?
And then we can come together and say, okay, and if you do have any recommendations at all. That way, when we do get back together, we're all working off the same information. And then hopefully we can spend some time on it.
and then with that, follow, add your idea along with what you see as a minimum. I have a rating.
The more info you can give to this subcommittee, the better, because you've been eating, living, breathing, blah, blah, blah. You know what the issues are and what has to be done. So it has to start with you for us to remedy them.
As far as the overall strategic plan, are we doing an update to the existing one, or are we recreating?
Well, I think we can do it either way, but honestly, I think probably the best way for us to do this, which I think would be pretty efficient. Goal number one, I don't think needs to change, other than some of the priority strategies.
And I think that's the thing to get updated. I think if we can
That's the
agree
update
about
part.
the goals part, the rest will
Right.
fall into place.
And I think that, goal two is a big awareness piece, and I think that's one that can be totally replaced with a new goal. And I think maybe that new goal is looking at some of that operational framework possibly, that I think should be probably included in this unless. But I think that's part of the planning process is to set the, to set up the questions like the SWOT analysis and get feedback and input from, their members, even staff members, in our leadership. And take that and really let that kind of drive where we're going with our plan. But goal number one absolutely needs to stay, because that's really our mission. And then 2 and 3, we can talk about, because I think 3 goals is probably.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because goal 3 kind of touches on, it's create a management governance model that promotes foundation growth. And looking at like the staff and whatnot, I think could kind of fit under there as well. That really modifying the goal. Looking for operational efficiencies and better operating structure, but that's different than the management and, governance and growing the foundation.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna have a really good base with this one.
Yeah, I know last time we, hired.
Marcy, actually. Marcy, Marty Maxwell, yeah.
Yeah, and I know it always like gives a very thorough and robust process. So, I mean, I'm totally good with in favor of updating, the strategic plan we have. I think it's a good framework, with the focus on, what we talked about with operational and staff.
So should we just all study the strategic plan and make notes and things for, are we, how are we gonna pulling this together in the next meeting? Or we have a special strategic planning meeting or? what?
Well, that's why I think with the subcommittee,
Yeah.
how we're gonna operate
Yeah.
the subcommittee, I think that's gonna be the key. I don't know that we wanna wait until the next board meeting to do
Yeah, I
that.
agree.
Um,
Maybe we can get
start-
something on the calendar right away and even like appoint like a chair of that subcommittee to help, define the direction agenda, communication, one point of communication to Jody, so he's not in.
Timelines.
Yeah.
For the structure to how we
Yeah.
operate it and then actually we're gonna start doing it.
It almost worked backwards because what we're talking about with the staffing model is really a priority strategy or measurable outcome of goal number 3. So we, as part of this committee, can look at how does the staffing structure
Right,
impact or work under goal
Right.
number 3 of the strategic priorities. So to me, we're just taking this challenge of the subcommittee for this effort and tying it back into our
Right.
strategic plan.
right, so the sooner we get going on that, the better.
Right.
So you have your homework, Jody.
I'll send an email out.
It's good homework, it's light at the end of the tunnel, right?
I'll send an email out and we'll figure out some dates and timelines and put it in there, the structure and get looking at.
And most of you folks that are on the or on this subcommittee are from the Indy area, right? So that'll be easier than having to travel. I do too, I love it.
Now, the one thing
I
that we
need to
will
walk
have
on
to
the
see,
suspension bridge.
just to add another dynamic that we have to deal with today. Because of the public policy changes that came last year with this, the audio recordings, because of the number of people on the subcommittee. It actually tips it over and qualifies it for a public meeting space that we would have to have the OWL notify people 48 hours in advance. So this is something I'll probably go to DNR General Counsel, and find out if we can get an exemption for this, because I don't think there's zero appropriations from the state. We're not using taxpayer dollars. We're not doing any of these things. This is a strategic planning session for the foundation and entity that I don't think needs to be public, because we're happy to share the plan once it's done, but as a working session, I don't think this should be a public meeting.
I agree.
Because then, yeah. it should-
It's a working session.
General exception for personnel matters, so obviously under that,
Possibly.
is to discuss bringing some assistance.
Well, especially since the results are going to be in, at a public meeting.
All right, great. I think we've done amazingly well to cover all of this and have some things for moving forward. Thank you all for being here. Jody, do you have anything else?
No, I just appreciate everybody's time and consideration for this, and, I really look forward to getting the strategic planning sessions underway and getting it done, because I think that's really gonna help. Sure, there's a really good guide. It's gonna keep us all on the same page. And I think it will help us better address some of the fire drills that we encounter with the responsive nature of what we do with DNR. Because I think I can count back the last 5 or 6 board meetings, maybe, like, maybe a week before, we did an email, I was like, hey, we need to change this, can you add this? Yeah, we can do that. So we'll still have some of that last minute stuff, but I think this really gives us a really solid guide, and allows everybody to kind of be moving forward in the same direction, so.
And I think on our side, I'm sure we all agree that we're so blessed to have you and where you've taken us from where we were pre-Jody, where we are now is just like a whole different. Yeah, I mean, with you, the addition of you guys and, we appreciate you, that Cheryl staying on, helping us with stuff. That's always a wonderful thing. So thank you guys for making the trip up here to Turkey Run. And we do like going to properties. That's one thing that I think is really special. We are governor appointed board, but we all love being out in the woods or walking on the suspension bridge or whatever, and that strengthens our cause, I had my cousin from Louisville grew up in the country, but he brought some folks that if they told me once he was a city slicker, he told me at least 350 times. And those of you that have been to my house know that I'm not a city slicker. And he was an attorney and he was saying, I'm like, you know, dude, you're in the country, just go with it. We're kayaking. And then he sent me a message, I'm ready to come to the country again anytime. I'm like, well, that city slicker stuff isn't always so important, is it? So anyway, I appreciate you guys and your attitude toward what we do. And Jody, we appreciate you and you guys do this.
We have a really great staff. I mean, Todd and Ethan, and I know Eric is not here today, but when she's back, they all do a really great job, you know, talking to people, building those relationships that we need. You know, spending the time that we need and, you know, hearing the guys in Fort Wayne and Marty has been very connected to that, speaking very highly of Todd and the relationship he's really done is a very good thing, so.
And if we had handpicked a board, we could not have done better, I think. And I think we've all become friends and like each other and look forward to being together. I'm on a few boards that I'm like, I hate to go to this. But this one, I love it. It's fun. So again, Lisa, welcome. All you guys, does anybody have anything to add? All right, we'll adjourn the meeting at 10:37.